If you look in the news, especially left-leaning sites like The Guardian, SBS or the ABC, who seem to see themselves as the reasonable centre, almost everyone who has a differing opinion to the modern left is labelled far-right. Macron calls snap election after far-right surge in EU election. What is the far-right? Why nationalist parties are on the rise in Europe? Actually, if you look in this article, they don't just use the term far-right, they also use the term hard-right and extreme right, and, if you don't quite understand what they mean, radical right, all in the same article. They seem to be running out of adjectives to describe how far the right is away from the centre. But just like the word racism, the term far-right has become so diluted now from overuse, or perhaps more correctly, misuse, that it's almost lost all meaning. I read articles from both sides of politics because I like to keep an open mind about things, even though some articles on the ABC are becoming increasingly tiresome. Coal mine, climate change, drug dealers' defence. It's like they put any old rubbish in headings now. Not to mention the mandatory sad-looking animals staring at a smokestack churning out pollution. It's like the animal is actually concerned about the pollution, as if it can understand what's going on. After reading all these stories about the far right, at least from the left's perspective, it doesn't take much now to be labelled as such. Here's a little list I've composed. What it takes to be labelled far right in 2024. 1. You're concerned about mass immigration. No, you're not allowed to question high levels of immigration. If you do, you're racist or xenophobic. Whatever you are, you're clearly a member of the far right. 2. You don't support wrecking the economy to reach net zero. No, how dare you not go along with this? The green transition must occur. Cost of living be damned. And 3. You emphasise the traditional family unit. You know, a man, a woman, and their biological or adopted children. No, that's transphobic or homophobic or some other phobic. Whatever it is, it's far right. The far right used to be about fascism and Nazism, you know, racial supremacy and totalitarian societies. That's not how they're using the term at all anymore. They've bastardised the term. If you search the ABC for far right, you get hundreds of articles. I'm not going to show them all, but they talk about it all the time. Even Taylor Swift conspiracy theories are considered far right. Yes, in the same category as Hitler. But if you search for far left, you barely get anything at all. You get a couple of articles from 2021 about the far left in Chile and Peru, and you get an article from 2019 with Obama warning the Democrats not to stray too far to the left in order to not alienate the average American. Too late, I think. The point is, clearly the ABC and others are making it sound like Australia is under attack by the far right. They publish hundreds of articles about the far right as if the far left doesn't exist. But as we all know, you can't have good without evil, happiness without sadness, light without darkness. Without one, the significance of the other ceases to exist. You can't be rich unless somebody else is poor. If everyone is rich, then no one is rich. It's the classic dichotomy. Similarly, you can't have the far right without the far left. Unfortunately, the far left seem to think they're in the centre and that everyone else are the extreme ones. So what is the far left? Well, here's a little list I've composed. What it takes to be labelled far left in 2024. 1. You support mass immigration/open borders. Despite the evidence that too much immigration is harming society, even just from a social cohesion point of view, you will not dare be labelled racist or xenophobic and will support unrestricted immigration no matter what. 2. Contrarily, you support unrestricted planned parenting and or antinatalism, voluntary childlessness. It's odd, on one hand the far left are all for preventing their own population from growing, but on the other hand they support mass immigration. It's kind of self-defeating, or perhaps ironic. 3. You support extreme gender ideology/queer anarchism. That is, one's gender is what one says it is. Biology be damned. Not only do you support this ideology, you support the teaching of it to young children at all possible opportunities, in all possible settings. 4. You support net zero at all costs, economy and people's livelihoods be damned. This is about saving the planet. It's odd, the far left are so eager to save the planet and presumably human civilization, it kind of runs counter to the second point, or maybe that's just me. 5. You support extreme equality. That is, certain people should be treated more equal than others. Despite everyone in the West already attaining equality under the law, that's not enough. We must give marginalised groups more advantages than the rest of us to counter the effects of past injustices and the ongoing trauma caused by colonisation. We saw it in the divisive Voice campaign here in Australia. We see it with the gender pay gap and with the Secretary for Men's Behaviour Change being appointed in Victoria, and we're seeing it play out around the world with certain groups being allowed to trash historical statues who they deem racist, with the left-wing media essentially spurring it on. Even though virtually every historical figure would be considered wildly racist by today's standards. I won't go on, but you get the idea. The far left are real, but they don't like to admit it. So instead, they label everyone who disagrees with them as far right. It's interesting, leader of the opposition Peter Dutton has recently been pushing for nuclear power in Australia, and if elected will dump Australia's 2030 climate target, arguing that it's virtually impossible to achieve. He's probably right. He's also promised to cut migration numbers, at least temporarily, which of course was met with cries of racism. What's most interesting, if you look at my initial list of what it takes to be labelled far right nowadays, Peter Dutton fits the bill, does he not? He's questioning migration, he's pulling the reins on net zero, and I'm sure he personally supports the traditional family structure. But yet, the ABC have not labelled him as far right. Well, not yet. I think I know why. If it was anybody else, they would have already pulled out the far-right rhetoric. But this is the leader of the opposition. If they label him far-right, they're essentially labelling half of Australian voters as far-right, and that would result in a huge backlash. Sure, they label other foreign governments as far-right, but that's not Australia. If they start labelling large swathes of their own populace as far-right, then they'd lose all credibility. So why do they do it? Why are they so intent on labelling their detractors as far right? Well, I think there's two reasons. One, they want to delegitimise people's views. They don't like people questioning net zero or mass immigration, so they try to label you as some kind of nut job. But secondly, they don't want to accept that perhaps their views, the views of the far left, are the extreme ones. They simply don't want to accept that the opinions of billions of people don't align with their own.